Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Ray Lewington to my Roy Hodgson. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Justin, England's women. Very deflating, isn't it? I was watching the game earlier as well as the Norwich Millwall game. Don't know why they were both on at the same time, but there you go. Poor planning on someone's behalf. And it's just all very disappointing. I had all this build up and then that happens.
Yeah, it's a familiar feeling of disappointment, but that shouldn't overshadow the achievement of Serena Wiegman's team and the Spanish finally getting revenge for that heavy defeat in 1588 when the Spanish Armada was comfortably put away. I think that may have been in the back of their minds.
I'm sure that was very much what they were thinking of as they walked out onto the pitch. The thing is, people haven't been saying it, but England haven't actually played very well in that World Cup. I've watched most of the games apart from one or two, and the only good performances were the Australia game and the 6-1, was it, against China? Apart from that, I haven't actually played that well.
Yeah, but Spain haven't been fantastic either. They've sort of grown into the tournament because they got absolutely peppered by Japan in the group stages. It was a masterclass of counter-attacking football by Japan, but they just showed a little bit more in this game, didn't they? The technical side of it, they were much better, and the game management was incredible. It was summed up by I think it's Jenny Hermoso giving Chloe Kelly the middle finger. There's a picture circulating of that, which is just sums it up perfectly. The disappointment and just pure shithousery. That performance was great.
Doesn't happen enough, does it? Don't have enough players giving each other middle fingers on the pitch. Well, if you are deflated and disappointed after England's defeat in the final, then let's cheer you up with some Championship podcasting, shall we? Well, it depends who you support, I suppose. Welcome to the number one Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, we're going to go through all the games in the Championship from the past weekend, talk about some of the news from the past few days, and then finish off with Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight right at the end. And Leicester continued their 100% start to the season by beating Cardiff 2-1. Of course, Cesar Casade scored the winner after we expressed our surprise about him going to Leicester. Typical. TJ on Twitter said Leicester had too much class. Nath said he's feeling very optimistic after that. Ryan said they were average but won. And Ryan's right, isn't he? It's another game where Leicester haven't been amazing but still won. Is that a cause for concern, do you think, Justin Peach? Or is it a cause for encouragement?
Maybe a cause for encouragement. I think it depends what side of the pessimistic fence you sit on. If it was me, I'd certainly be concerned. But I think if you sit on the other side of that fence, you'd be very optimistic about what's coming up. Because if you're picking up points and winning games without playing particularly well, then you're going to recognise that there's going to be significant room for improvement there. And Maresca will understand that. It's a relatively new squad. There's a lot of moving parts that have been going on throughout the summer. Got to remember as well that it started quite slow. The appointment took a fair while to get sorted, along with moving players on and bringing players in. So I don't expect him to really hit full gear until maybe, October, November. So I'm a little bit more optimistic about it. I'm certainly not pessimistic about it. I think they will come good eventually. And as you say, they're picking up points, not playing well. It's a good thing at this stage of the season.
Yeah. Well, we've got to remember Burnley took quite a while to get going last season, didn't they? It wasn't until around October where they looked like the side that would ultimately go on to storm the league. They drew a lot of games at that time, and it's quite scary to think, I suppose, how many points they could have got if they didn't have that slow start. But with Leicester, there's certainly parallels there, isn't there? The main difference is they're winning, whereas Burnley were just drawing games last season. And if they're not playing very well, then, I think the fact that they're still getting wins on the board is definitely a sign of that. The class that they have is just shining through in the end. Perhaps when the transfer window's closed and everything's a bit more settled, there'll be a bit more fluence because, right now they're playing a centre half at left back, aren't they? And I'm sure in an ideal world, Enzo Maresca would much prefer to play, England international James Justin or Belgium international Timothy Castagne there instead if he had the choice. And Castagne's future certainly is a bit up in the air at the moment. So we might see that at some point, but it might have to be at the end of the window when players' futures are a bit more settled, because the same with all three of the teams who have come down, there's still plenty of players who are being linked with moves away, aren't there?
Well, that's always the key thing that people do forget quite often. Unless you're super productive before the season starts, which Leicester weren't. Let's be fair, they weren't. It's going to take a while for those moving parts to really settle into the right gears. And like I was alluding to, I don't think we'll see the best of Leicester until maybe October, or certainly we won't see what Leicester are about until October. Maybe not the best, because they might drop off. They might certainly drop off, but also they might kick it up another few gears, because they've got the quality in the squad, and we've not seen the best of that quality yet either. There's a lot of potential with this team. We've seen Kieran Dewsbury Hall really excel, but have we seen Jamie Vardy do damage in the box yet? No, although he did pretty much make the winner here for Casado. We're not seeing Daka really thrive yet. There's a lot of players out there that just haven't hit top form yet, and it's to be expected. We're at the start of the season, but you're winning games, not playing well. Big positives, just a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, well, it goes one of two ways, really, doesn't it? When you've got a team who a lot of people fancy for promotion, and they start the season off, fairly well. I'm thinking back to when it was West Brom 2 seasons ago. We both said they would win the league that season. Started off a bit slowly, but we're still getting results on the board. Then everything just went to shit. Exactly. So it goes one of two ways, doesn't it? And I'm more inclined to think it's going to go the Burnley way, personally, just because I think there's way too much quality in that Leicester squad. So the fact that we're sat here now with them having a 100% start, only the second time, I think, in the past 100 years that they've won their first 3 games of the season, I think. Promising, to say the very least. What a goal by Aaron Ramsey in this game, 30 yards out, and it stayed hit, didn't it? It's a shame that it was for the losing side, because in the end it didn't really mean much, did it? But what have you made of old Rambo so far, back in a Bluebird shirt, Justin?
I think his form is probably indicative of Cardiff's form, where he's shown some good spells, some not necessarily not so good spells, but areas where maybe the game phases where the game maybe passes him by. But I think if Cardiff certainly step up and improve, I think we'll start to see the best of Ramsey, because I just don't think we've seen the best of either. But if he's got moments like that in him, then he can certainly win games on his own, as long as Cardiff are structured defensively and resolute. But yeah, I think he's been okay. I've not been taken aback by him. He's shown some moments. You're looking at that Leeds game where he takes a player out of the game, and Cardiff attacking down the left hand side. So yeah, certainly a lot of moments of class, but we're not seeing 90 minutes of it yet, which is to be expected. He's not played too many games over the last couple of years, and he's at the wrong end of his career. So yeah, he's been all right. I think would just be the outsider's view, I think.
Yeah, I think you're perhaps being a bit harsh, Justin. I think he has been very good. He's still got some magic in the old boots, as we saw here, and he's certainly stood out for me so far. You can tell he was an extremely talented player at one point. So, I suppose that goes without saying. But, we never doubted his talent, did we? When the signing was made, we said he's obviously still a very good player. It was, we had doubts more over whether it would have the desired effects, and so far we seem to have been kind of right with that, because 1 point from Cardiff's first 3 games feels a bit like Ramsey's on a different wavelength to everyone else. And you've got this player who's extremely talented, but is surrounded by a load of players who just aren't as good as him. And that makes it a bit difficult for him to work to his full powers, I suppose. So I think he's been very good. And he certainly showed some excellent moments of class, like in this game. And he was great against Leeds on the opening weekend as well. But I suppose we'll wait and see with him, won't we?
Well, you always get to the sort of the chunky part of the season. I've said it a few times already since we've been recording since the start of the season. Is you get to October, November, when the games really start to build up. There's international football as well, and there's breaks. Will he pick up a knock? Will he pick up a calf strain? Will their form drop? Will it improve? There's a lot of moving parts as to whether or not I think Ramsey can thrive.
He's not finished in 90 minutes yet, has he?
Well, exactly, and that's where we're going to start to see things, because if Cardiff's form doesn't improve and they stay on 1 point for several more games, the need for Ramsey to really step up and him becoming an important player and play more minutes and have more impact, that steps up, and ultimately that's going to create a massive risk he might get injured. So there are just too many ifs, buts, and maybes with Ramsey at the moment. Not criticising him by any means. I think there's a lot of improvement there for him to make, and that's only going to happen if Cardiff improve as well. Is pretty much what I've been saying.
Norwich beat Millwall 3-0 on Sunday afternoon. I tell you what, Justin, Norwich have certainly stood out so far, haven't they?
Yeah, Muggs predicts them to finish 19th. It's incredible. They were simply brilliant. It was a classic performance, and it's one that makes you stand up and take note, because I thought this would be an awkward game for them. I thought Millwall would channel that inner Millwall that they have, where they do make it a horrible affair for you, but Norwich made them look like bottom dwellers, and that's more credit to Norwich's approach to this game than it is Millwall's, because I thought Norwich was just simply brilliant. They're pressing from the front. They were clinical. They were really good, and it's not a team that I was expecting to see this season. I happily admit I'm wrong on that one. I know we're only 3 games in, but I was expecting a slow start. But bearing in mind they had a good start last season, so it could all go wrong, as been alluding to with Leicester. But this performance was brilliant, and their first 3 performances in the league this season have been fantastic. We want to stand up and sort of chew on those words a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get carried away, because it is only 3 games into the season. It's such a small sample size, but I'll admit Norwich have been very impressive in these first 3 games. I'm not sure what David Wagner's been cooking over the summer, but they look a completely different team to the one which ended last season, don't they? Gabriel Sara's possibly been the best player in the division so far. He's just been excellent. Jonathan Rowe has come out of nowhere, scored in every game so far, which is not bad for someone I didn't know even existed until this season. Josh Sargent looks to be back in form. It's all gone surprisingly very well so far. And they've probably been the team who have impressed me the most so far this season, with the exception of their southern neighbours. I'm not going to get carried away and start shouting playoffs or anything like that, because everything could be very different in a couple of months' time, like it was last season when they were flying under Dean Smith, and then look how it ended. But I will admit they have been excellent, and this is coming from the man who had them to be the biggest underachievers this season. And well, I mean, you picked Millwall as your outsider in midweek as well, didn't you, Justin? So yeah, they're certainly making us look a bit daft so far, aren't they, old Norwich? So hopefully that continues. We asked Millwall fans for their 3-word reviews on Twitter. Reese says he's very miserable, and Ben says we need help. Al says time's up for Rowett. Wow. What are Millwall doing, Justin? Defensively, it was a disaster class, wasn't it? They stood out for me on the opening day, but I've had 2 very disappointing games since then.
Yeah, it's been a frustrating one. I've been really disappointed with them last 2 games, especially. And you go into this game specifically, just the amount of freedom they gave Jonathan Rowe, for example, was quite staggering. I'm not even going to mention the Sargent goal, because the marking on that, or at least the blocking of runners and marking of territories, was just non-existent and terrible. Something you don't expect from 3 very experienced defenders in Hutchinson, Cooper, and Wallace, and among other players. Danny McNamara, and it was criticised online as well. But Jonathan Rowe had the freedom of Norfolk to do whatever he wanted in that game, and it was quite staggering, really, that there wasn't a game plan set up to counter that. And Gabriel Sara, the amount of chances he created as well. Again, where's the game plan to counter those clear problems that you're going to face? Really surprised, actually, at how poor and ill-equipped Millwall felt in this game. I'm not Rowett out. I like Rowett. I'd like him a lot. But this team looks really unbalanced. And I think that's starting to show. They just weren't good enough. And it's summed up actually by Nisbet only having 1 touch in the opposition box. They just didn't get the ball into him, didn't play into his strengths. And yeah, the team looks unfinished, which is not where you want to be at this stage in the transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone was wondering whether this may be the season where Mill will finally break into the top 6, I think they may have to keep waiting based on what we've seen so far. Zian Fleming's had a fairly quiet first few games. Kevin Nisbet, the new striker's not had a good start, missed some good chances so far. Just feels like more of the same with Millwall. And I don't mean losing. I mean, it all feels like something's still missing there. And with regards to Rowett out, which always seems to happen whenever Millwall lose 2 games in a row, Millwall fans start, calling for his head. I'm not sure I'd be on that side of the fence personally, but it goes back to what I've been saying for a long time now, that Rowett just does a good job. And Millwall are at the stage now where they should be taking that step further. But I mean, it's 3 games. We shouldn't get too carried away, but I'd be amazed if it happened this season.
Well, I do agree with you. And it's frustrating to sort of admit that, because I've wanted it so long for Gary Rowett and Millwall to get into that top 6, but it's hard to see them drumming in. Got to bear in mind they had a slow start last season, a really poor slow start last season, so they might kick up a gear. But it felt the squad was more balanced last year than it is this year. So unless they make some serious moves in the transfer window to rebalance their side, just can't see them maybe even making top 10 based on the small sample size we've had so far. So, yeah, big claim, but I'm sure many Millwall fans might agree with that at the moment.
Yeah, it's a very competitive division, isn't it?
Yeah.
And teams, unfortunately, like Millwall, will probably have to move down because it is so competitive. And that's why I'd just be very surprised if they actually did get into the top 6 this season, unless something amazing happens in the last few weeks of the transfer window. A 93rd minute winner from Che Adams saw Southampton beat Plymouth 2-1. First of all, we've got to give a word to the state of that pitch. Justin, you text me when the game was on, and I was like, is it that bad? And then suddenly I was like, oh God, yeah, it is.
It's blown up chunks, and for some reason the commentators were blaming Roger Stewart. It's like,
were they?
Yeah,
because he had a concert there.
He had a gig there in the summer. It's like, come on, lads, this isn't fair. He's just bringing Roger Stewart into it. It's got nothing to do with Roger Stewart. It's the groundsman. Roger Stewart's not sat at the side going, I know what this is going to do later on in the season. Unless he's
Justin, got. How do you know that? You don't know that for sure. Maybe Rod Stewart has been nipping down to Plymouth during the week and just secretly churning the pitch up.
You're burying sand underneath it because there's a ton of sand. There's layers of it. I don't understand. I'm not a groundsman. I have no idea how these pitches are structured, but it just doesn't feel like grass can grow on top of sand. Like, what's going on? I know it's the South Coast and Devonshire, but yeah, weird. Just getting cut up. Devonshire. Oh my God. My county geography is terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, but you mentioned the pitch. There was one point, I think, where Stuart Armstrong had a free kick in the first half. And before he took it, he spent a good 20 seconds, like, taking mud off his boots and having to just like really scrape it off because it was really coming up. And yeah, it was certainly a bit strange. Ryan on Twitter said Plymouth deserved a point, and I think I'd agree with that. I think we've got to give credit to Plymouth here because I thought they were great and maybe deserved a point, maybe even could have won this.
They were really brave in their approach play, and I think the way they've tactically set up this season, I was expecting a 3 at the back, but obviously Schumacher's changed it to a 4 at the back, and they've got an extra man in midfield, which I think is quite smart because they're not going to relinquish space, they're not going to drop deeper. They're going to maintain that high line and essentially put an extra man in midfield and give them extra protection, and it's seemingly working, especially as I say in their approach play. They were getting Ballymumba into some good one-on-one situations and getting the ball in good areas, and Morgan Whittaker looked really bright on the ball. They were just full of endeavour, and I think that's what you need when you're coming up. You need to be a brave team coming from League One, and a lot of young players as well. Just lacking that killer touch at the moment. I think there was a moment actually in the first half when Morgan Whittaker was running through, could have just played a reverse pass to Hardy, but held on for a touch too long and then misplaced his pass to Mumba. And it's moments like that probably was a big difference in the quality between the two teams, which is to be expected considering the amount of resource that separates them.
Yeah, there's certainly a huge gap in that regard, isn't it? And I think you've got to take that into account when you look at this game in perspective and say Plymouth could have easily won this, and that just goes to show how good this Plymouth side are. They're more than competitive this season, aren't they? And I think home park is going to be such a tough hunting ground for teams this season. I imagine a lot of people thought Southampton would walk this one, and just wasn't the case at all, was it? I have got to remember, Plymouth only dropped points at home on 3 occasions last season. Yeah. Teams are going to struggle there, like Southampton did. I don't know if it's the conditions with the pitch or Rod Stewart, churning it all up, or maybe the wind as well, because we spoke about the wind on the first weekend of the season, didn't they? It seems to be. Why are you laughing?
It just seems like this all these outside factors other than Plymouth being actually a decent team. It's the weather. It's Rod Stewart and it's sand.
Justin. I have been one of Plymouth's biggest cheerleaders so far because I've been amazed at how good their recruitment has been so far. And I think, people have been talking a lot about Ipswich and how good they are, but I think people have somewhat forgotten Plymouth because they are just such a well-run club, managers class, and I'll continue to wave my pom-poms as I cheerlead them for the rest of the season. But yeah, as I was saying, the pitch may play maybe a factor, the winds, maybe a factor as well. I don't know. Or maybe it's just the fans and the atmosphere that they create there. But it's going to be a place where teams struggle. The thing is as well, I don't think Steven Schumacher has been able to play the formation he wants to yet, because he did play with the back 3 pretty much throughout last season, didn't he? But haven't been able to do it so far, I imagine, because of injuries, I'm guessing. So I think there's more to come from them. If I was a Plymouth fan, I'd be very chuffed with how my team started. How are you feeling about Southampton's start so far, Justin?
So I'm a bit different. I don't sit as positively as I do with Southampton. I think the main thing is the quality again, like Leicester, is coming through. They're creating chances and they're scoring late, which tells you there's a lot of room for improvement. And they yet to really control the game, although they do like possession quite a bit. They don't grab the game by the scruff of the neck, is the cliche. Mind teams, they just seem a bit too nice with the ball. They're just too polite. They're trying to perform ballet, whereas other teams are in a mosh pit. Be more mosh pit, Russell Martin. Be more mosh pit.
Hey, I'm always up for being a bit more mosh pit. Yeah, I don't think they were great against Plymouth and easily could have lost that game, as we were saying. The Norwich game was a defensive nightmare, and then they had to be patient against Wednesday, didn't they? So I would say so far it's been good. Not amazing, not bad, just good. We predicted there would be a slow start, and I think that's just being the case. They're getting results, though, so that's very good. It's quite similar to Leicester, I suppose, where they haven't really stood out so far, but they're still getting points. I imagine the closure of the transfer window will certainly help with things. So they know the hand that they've got, because rumours around the future of Nathan Teller and Che Adams won't be helpful. Could do with bringing in a couple of players themselves, but that squad as it stands is still good enough for promotion in, I imagine, everyone's eyes. So yeah, a steady start, I'd say, for Russell Martin and Southampton. Do they need to be a bit more mosh pit? I can see where you're coming from. Russell Martin wearing a t-shirt and a hoodie, by the way. It looked like he was having a lazy day watching Netflix. He's a scruff bag. On Friday night, Leeds and West Brom drew 1-1. A fair bit of controversy in this one. West Brom's goal was scored by the forearm of Brandon Thomas Asante. To be fair to the referee, it wasn't very obvious. Only one or two Leeds players appealed, and even then I think they may have been appealing for offside. And then Sky only seemed to pick up on it after a few replays, but still controversial.
VAR is your answer. I would die on this hill. VAR being absolutely fine. I know it's going to be boring, but it's just the rules and the use of VAR. That's the problem. We saw it in the Women's World Cup final. The ref took an absolute age to decide whether the ball hit the defender's hand. It did hit the hand. It was very obvious. It just took an absolute age, and that could be cleared up quite quickly. So I think, situations like this, so it does hit the hand of Brandon Thomas Asante, or the forearm, I should say. Is cleared up by VAR. Don't hide from it. Don't run from it. It's coming for all of us. It's fine. Just get used to it.
People will point out just in the Onana situation with Man United from last week, where he's basically done a crossbody onto the Wolves player.
And but that's the referee, isn't it? That's the referee and the VAR officials that are getting it wrong, not VAR itself. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Leeds arguably should have had a penalty shortly after as well, although I don't think that was personally. I thought this was going to be another disastrous day for Leeds in the end, but they managed to save themselves, didn't they? Do you ever look at Leeds and see the chaos that's going on behind the scenes? Sam Byram at right back. Feels like we've gone back 10 years, doesn't it? It's like the old days, isn't it? The Chileno years. Like, what's Elhaj Diouf and Rudolph Austin doing?
Rudy Austin, what a player. Just waiting for Neil Warnock to turn up as well, aren't we? To come and save the day and then leave in a ball of fire because it's not gone well at all.
Warnock, Steve Evans,
David Hockaday.
But I tell you what, I was looking at the Leeds team that started this game, and I'm not sure there's another side who simultaneously need the window to close, but also to stay open more than them, because they need to have a busy couple of weeks, don't they, in terms of getting rid of players who don't want to be there, but also strengthening that squad.
Right, you summed it up perfectly. It's such a weird juxtaposition to find yourself in. Not only do you need it to get gone, but you also need it to stay around for a little bit longer. Obviously Wilfried Gnonto and Luis Sinisterra, you need to know where they're going to be playing, whether they're going to stay at Leeds or whether they're going to go. And for me, they need at least 4 players. They need a striker, another attacking midfielder, add more energy to that midfield, and probably a left back as well. That's what my assumption would be, or assessment, I should say. For me, I think they're 4 players short, probably being a top 6 team, not even a top 2 team. So I think there's a lot of quality missing, and we've seen it in these games that they start slow, they go behind, and then they kick up a gear and they start to dominate. That needs to change, and I think maybe more experience might help with that.
Well, I'm not too sure personally, because it's very difficult to say when we don't know what the team's going to be come the end of the transfer window. That's a real sticking point with Leeds. But you look at the team, I mean, Sam Byram at left back, fair play, he's done all right so far, but he's not a long-term solution, is he? Of course, Junior Firpo's out injured, so I guess he'll come into the team at some point. But then Jamie Shackleton playing right wing isn't ideal, is it? So I'm not... I think they would need a striker because even when Patrick Bamford's back, I'm not completely convinced about the idea of him being what Leeds need. And I mean, wingers definitely, because they've gone from having Jack Harrison, Gnonto, Sinistera to potentially having none of them. So that needs to be addressed as well. But I mean, personally, I want to see the young players get more of a go. Charlie Cresswell, Cody Drame, give them a run out and let this be the start of a new era at Leeds. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. So yeah, they definitely need to be active in the transfer window, don't they, before it closes, not just in terms of keeping players, but getting people in through the door as well. We haven't really spoken about West Brom yet this season, Justin. It's just a bit so-so there, isn't it?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of I don't know where I'm trying to pinpoint it. There's a lot of humming and hawing, I think, with West Brom because of the ownership situation, and we're not really sure. Again, like Leeds, not really sure where the squad's going to finish or end up at the end of the transfer window. But I'd say the start has been okay. It's been a little bit bumpy. They're yet to create a higher XG than their opponent this season in the 3 games they've played so far. So there's certainly a lot of scope there for Corberan to improve the team. But I think they'll have been pleased with how they put up against Leeds because they've gone ahead, they've conceded a lot of time in possession, and they've come away from Adam Road with a point, which a lot of teams will be quite happy with. But you've got to think if they're going to improve on that 15th place that we've predicted them to finish in, they've got to be creating more chances through games. And they haven't done that yet, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure what West Brom's expectations are. Yeah. Justin, I don't know what you think.
I imagine they'll be looking to get into that top half, maybe with an eye on the playoff, mainly because they've still got a fair bit of quality there. But we've seen defensively that, for me, I think they need some serious improvement. Cedric Kibre could be a really good championship player.
Nobody's realistic though, Justin, because I mean, with the financial situation, the ownership situation, I mean, they've only signed 2 players this summer. I know there's some big names at West Brom, but I just don't see that really being a possibility.
I don't think it is, but I'm speaking from a Carlos Corberan perspective, where he's signed a new deal last summer. Maybe if Leeds had come in for him, he could have left this summer, but he stayed at West Brom, and he's going to want to be ambitious, and he's achieved a lot more with a lot less at Huddersfield Town, for example. So I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I think he wants the top 6, but as I say, performances have got to improve drastically because they're conceding too many chances in games, and they're yet to create a lot more for themselves as well. So maybe Josh Madra comes in, improves things. Grady Diangana comes back to full fitness, that improves things. I don't know. Again, just a lot of question marks, which is probably why we haven't covered West Brom massively over the last 2 weeks.
Well, they've just been so-so, haven't they?
Yeah.
I just find it a bit difficult to get excited about West Brom. There isn't much there that particularly inspires me. Perhaps that's because in my mind, they should be challenging for the top 6, but I just can't see that happening personally. As we say, 2 signings this summer. Sarmiento looks an exciting player, but the 2 players they brought in aren't game changers, are they? I know the financial side of it is the reason for that, but still. So it looks like they're just heading towards another mid-table kind of season. I'm not sure if that's a good season or not for West Brom. And that brings me on to the question, what is the expectation here? I just do not know. So it feels as if they're just kind of coasting along until they get a new owner. And I'm not sure how long we're going to have to wait for that to actually happen, because in the meantime, they haven't got any money and the club's future in the long term is still a bit up in the air because of, loans and what have you. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about Sunderland and Ipswich both winning. Welcome back to the second tier podcast. Sunderland came from a goal down to beat Rotherham 2-1 to get off the mark. Jobe Bellingham getting both of them. He's the youngest player to score a brace in the Championship since Ryan Sessegnon in 2018. The amount of talent in the Bellingham household is absolutely insane, isn't it?
It's unfair, I think. It's incredibly unfair because I'm born. My dad was a welder, for example. My mum was a hairdresser, and I've not been blessed with any of those skills. Jude Bellingham's dad. I don't know if he was a footballer, but he's got some. Oh, but not
He
to
was,
a
he was semi-pro, so he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
the highest of standards, but still,
Yeah.
if his kids are anything to go by, then I'm guessing he must have been quite a player.
Well, exactly. We've got to check in on his genes and just see what's cracking there, because there's a makeup of some perfect footballers coming out. Obviously, Jude Bellingham, Jobe Bellingham are incredible. They're tall players with the grace and poise of players half their height. It's incredible. Obviously, we're seeing Jobe Bellingham now. I mean, Jude Bellingham's only 2021, isn't he? And Jobe Bellingham's just coming through at 17. So yeah, there's a significant, there's a lot of room for growth for both of them, and for the family to produce two quality teenagers like that, yeah, it's just ridiculous, unfair.
Yeah, really is. It is unfair, actually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, he is going to get compared to his brother, isn't he? It's just going to happen. But he shouldn't be, really, because in isolation, a 17-year-old as talented as him is really special. And it's just annoying that by his age, his brother was playing regularly for Borussia Dortmund. So, look, it's exciting to see him playing for Sunderland and starting games as well, because he wasn't really doing that at Birmingham, was he? He was coming off the bench, and that's not a dig at Birmingham by any means. It's just now he's actually getting a chance, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. So they took a gamble by splashing the cash on him in the summer, put a lot of faith in him, though, and he's already paying it back with these 2 goals and has looked very sharp so far. He's just fearless with the ball, works his socks off, and he's in a great place at Sunderland, isn't he? Because they're excellent at developing young players, and he's going to get given more chances as the season goes on, I'm sure. Interestingly, Footy Insider is reporting Tony Mowbray is fighting to save his job despite this win. One to keep an eye on, as we say. I've had my theory that Tony Mowbray may not be longing for the Sunderland job after all the murmurs at the end of last season, and I still have a feeling that may be the case. Ipswich Town remain top of the Championship after beating QPR 1-0. I have been singing Ipswich's praise so far this season, but I will admit they were a bit fortunate here, but still a 100% start. And last time a newly promoted side won their first 3 games was in 2011. Southampton did it and went on to win promotion. The last time a team won back-to-back automatic promotions. Justin, the Ipswich are going up tractor. The door is still very much open if you want to get on board.
I'm all right, thank you. It's very polite. I'm happy to buy a more expensive ticket closer to the end of the season and jump on the bandwagon should it happen. I think the Championship's full of bumps and tears that no one can foresee, and I think Ipswich is still not getting used to the league, but we saw in this game against QPR that it was an uncomfortable affair for them, despite them creating some decent chances. I thought QPR were unlucky not to come away with anything. So I think there's. I'm not jumping on any tractor yet. Is what I'm saying. I think there's plenty of room there for not for things to drop off, but I don't want to get carried away like you are.
Yeah, well, I'm happily getting carried away. I'm not regretting it at all, Justin. As impressed as I have been with Ipswich and as strong as I am feeling about them being very good this season, they could do with a couple of signings, a defender, another attacker, definitely on the shopping list for me, just to flesh out the squad a bit more. I do think Kieran McKenna has been somewhat frustrated with the transfer business this summer. I don't think he's by any means upset with the board or anything like that. I think it's more a case of they've had some targets who they have missed out on. And I mean, they have been linked with Jessurun Rak-Saki from Palace, who had an excellent season at Charlton last season. And if they were to miss out on him, I think he would be certainly even more annoyed. So I'm very interested to see what they do in the window over the next couple of weeks. Do you think that's fair, a defender and another attacker?
Well, I mean, they've done right defensively so far, so maybe not. I think another attacker would certainly be a massive benefit, because I'm still not convinced by the personnel they got in the final third. So if you had someone like Rak-Saki, for example, I think he's a player that's got a lot of unpredictability and a lot of technical qualities as well, and he's showed that Charlton that he was a goal scorer. So there's certainly potential there for Ipswich to improve in that final third. George Hurst, is he Championship quality? We still don't know. Connor Chaplin again, still don't know. So yeah, certainly more quality needed in that final third, I think.
I think Connor Chaplin's proved that he's Championship quality, isn't he?
Well, I think his only season in the Championship, he scored 12 goals for Barnsley, didn't he? Which was a decent return. It's a decent return, but then I can't remember where he went after that, whether it was straight to Ipswich or Portsmouth, can't quite remember. But we just want to see a few more games from him to see if he can really step up, because I still don't think he's not been fantastic this season. He's not hit the heights he did last season, which is a fairly lofty.
We're fucking 3 games into the season, Justin.
Yeah, but you're already getting carried away with Ipswich, aren't you? I'm not getting carried away with Connor Chaplin.
I just don't know why you've suddenly started digging at Connor Chaplin.
I've got to dig at something with Ipswich. Everyone thinks you love them too much, so I've got to play a balance here.
Just going to bring me down a peg. Completely understandable. Sheffield Wednesday are the only side still yet to win a point. They lost 1-0 to Preston. Not going well, is it?
Well, who thought this would happen? Hey, not us. I watched a fair bit of the game back. I wanted to see if we were wrong on Isco, but I just don't think we are. There's groups of supporters who are staunch defenders on him, and that's absolutely fine. I'm just not seeing it. There were no redeemable qualities in this team against Preston and the way they set up. Preston didn't have to do a lot to win this game. And that's not a criticism of Preston. I thought they played a perfect away game, but they offered barely anything going forward. Again, third game in a row. They have quality and they cause a nuisance from long throws and set pieces, but that's just about it. Defensively, they're a bit of a disorganised mess. Maybe that's unfair, actually. They're an organised mess, I think I would say, because they play far too deep. So I just don't think they can spring anything going forwards or counter-attack. And there's not enough pace in the team. There's just so many issues with this squad that it's probably unfair to lay all the blame at Xisco, but still not convinced by what he's putting out there. It's simple as that.
Well, hard to disagree. Bottom of the division for expected goals, 4, which I think may say a lot about our previous concerns with Isco Munoz, because it's hard to play past the ball to Ismail Assar when Sheffield Wednesday don't have Ismail Assar. In his defence, the squad is not looking great, is it? Strangely, he's been saying that it is good enough to stay up, which I get why he's saying that, because he wants to give them a bit of confidence, but it is also kind of insinuating that he's the problem. Whatever the case, I just don't think this squad is strong enough. We were saying about their recruitment. It's been a bit scattergunny, hasn't it? A lot of players have come in who you've either never heard of, or are players like Ashley Fletcher or Bambo Diaby, who wouldn't be getting in the squads of 95% of championship sides. And I do find it a bit strange that their best player last season in Josh Windass didn't start against Preston. So it's just all a bit weird, really. I think ultimately I'm feeling even less optimistic about them staying up now than I was at the beginning of the season. The expectations weren't too high to begin with, but from what I've seen so far, it's just bad.
It's just bad, isn't it? And what Munoz is putting out there with the players that he's got is just it's not good enough either. The atmosphere was so flat in this game. I know there wasn't a lot to shout about, but Hillsborough should be a tough place to go, but it just didn't feel like it. It felt Preston could come and pretty much do whatever they wanted. It was a lovely delivery in from Kean Best, and the header was great. But there was no spark after that either. It was just a flat game, and it's going to remain flat as well under Munoz, because I just don't think he can implement a style of play that gets his team going, gets players going, gets the stadium going either. Because we just haven't seen it so far. It's been so poor.
It really, really has. Great start to the season by Preston, by the way. 7 points from the first 3 games. Keon Best, you mentioned there, only 17. He looks a serious player. We'll have to have a chat about him at some point, Justin. And Aaron Connolly double saw Hull beat Blackburn 2-1. Sometimes a player goes to a club and everything just clicks for him, doesn't it? And it seems like that is very much the case with Aaron Connolly and Hull City. 3 goals in 2 games, scored 2 goals in 5 games last season before getting injured. His 3 goals this season is his joint biggest goal tally in his league career. And for me, Justin, I'm kind of enjoying the redemption arc of Aaron Connolly.
I really want him to do well, mainly because he's, as you say, he's not settled anywhere at all, and there's been so much promise and hype around him up until the last couple of years that it's not really worked out. But Hull fans I wouldn't say they were desperate to get him in, but they were keen to get him in. And you saw his 2 goals against Blackburn, so well taken. His runs were probably better than his finishes, mainly because you look at that Seri pass for the first one was just outstanding. I can't remember who played the second ball. It was described as route 1, which is a disgrace, by the way, because there's a difference between route 1 and a measured pass. But he lapsed onto it. There were fantastic runs, good touches, and decent finishes as well. So long may that continue. He's got more than Delap now, hasn't he? Which is interesting.
It is interesting. He hasn't even started a game yet. He's come off the bench in both games so far that he's played for Hull. So, I mean, let's be honest, he has flattered to deceive quite a bit in his career so far, hasn't he? And as we were alluding to, 3 goals being his highest league goal tally is just bad, whichever way you look at it, for someone who's played as many games as he has. But, you know, there is obviously a player there because he's played several games for Brighton in the Premier League, and it's just been a case of getting it out of him, which a lot of managers have struggled with. And, you know, injuries haven't helped, but he's had a pretty rotten time in the last couple of seasons. So when someone like Hull come along and show him some appreciation, have some patience with him as well, goes a long way. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Bristol City 0, Birmingham 2. Birmingham were excellent here, and so far very much living up to the hype surrounding them at the beginning of the season, aren't they?
They were great. They looked up for it. I saw there was some sequences someone uploaded to Twitter of them just winning the ball back aggressively. And it's exactly what you want this Birmingham team to be about. Aggressive pressing, aggressive turning possession over, getting the ball into good areas. And yeah, they did that in plenty against Bristol City. Maybe should have been maybe 2-0 flat at Bristol City. But it was certainly a good performance, and one that does lift you with a fair bit of confidence. And I don't think they're done in a transfer window yet either, because obviously they missed out on Sorry Kaba, so there's room for another forward to come in. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to see what John Eustace cooks up over the next few weeks, because I try not to get carried away, but they have been impressive.
Yeah, they certainly have. They're a class at the back here. I'm really enjoying the fullback pairing of Ethan Laird and Lee Buchanan. Lee Buchanan in particular looks such a good player compared to how he was when he was playing for Derby a few seasons ago. The double pivot of Christian Bielik and even Sunjic working excellently, and they're creating plenty of chances as well. You've got to give a lot of credit to John Eustace, because it's all well and good being given the tools, but it don't mean anything if you're giving them to someone who doesn't know how to use them. And so far, he's proving to be the right man to lead this sort of evolution that's happening at St Andrews. So it's very exciting. I agree with you. They could do with a few signings before the window closes, because they have missed out on Sorry Kaba, which is a real shame, because he would have been a great signing. So a striker is definitely top of that shopping list. Possibly a couple of defenders would help as well. So you can't help but feel optimistic about Birmingham.
No, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I wanted to mention even Sunjic and Christian Bielik, because they both signed. Obviously, Sunjic signed for Birmingham, Bielik signed for Derby in the same transfer window for big money. Young players at the time, a lot of prospect and promise. So I think it's almost beautiful that they're now playing together in the same team and doing a really good job of being a protective double pivot in front of that back line. I think, that could be a really good midfield pairing as the season progresses, because I think they complement each other brilliantly. And I think that's where Birmingham are going to really thrive, is they're going to build solidly from the back, and allow those attacking players to thrive and express themselves.
Yeah, and Sunjic as well. We kind of forgot about him, didn't we?
Yeah,
he's been on loan for the past couple of seasons, and now he's coming to the team. He's been excellent since coming in. He's been playing his best football in a Birmingham shirt, because when he initially came, he was good, but not as good as he has been recently. So yeah, it's been quite interesting seeing him starting every game for Birmingham and playing really, really well. An Andre Vidigal goal saw Stoke beat Watford 1-0, or should I say Andre Vidigal had a good start, hasn't he?
I had the name written down, and I was looking forward to saying it, and you beat me to it. But he has had a brilliant start, and the way he took his goal as well was brilliant. It was awesome. Just his touch inside, and then the swivel and the power and direction he got on that shot was brilliant. Yeah, he's looking to be a real player. I was quite skeptical of Stoke's transfer business, because when you recruit quite heavily from abroad, it takes those players a long time to, I think, embed into the Championship. But they call him Vidigal. May as well call him Vidigal, because he's not going to stop, is he? Yeah, Vidigal. He's settled nicely in, and he's been a real danger and a threat in Stoke's games. And when you've got to play like that, it certainly does help.
Yeah, Alex Neil said at half time, Vidigal said to him, "Don't worry, I'm going to score." And then he did it 8 minutes later. So he's a man of his word. And I'm the same as you. I didn't know too much about him before he came in, but he certainly caught the eye, hasn't he? And he just seems to be in the right place at the right time, which is interesting, because he's a winger traditionally, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So to have that kind of poacher instinct that he's got is surprising. But yeah, long may it continue. Swansea and Coventry drew 1-1. Connor on Twitter said it was disappointing, but all right for Coventry. Paul says Swansea were dull and boring. That's the spirit. And finally, Middlesbrough and Huddersfield both got their first points of the season after drawing 1-1 in the Neil Warnock derby. Well, quite a few Neil Warnock derbies, isn't there? Now it's time for this. Yes, it's time for the news. And an American businessman has indicated he wants to take over Sheffield Wednesday. Adam Shaw said in a statement via the BBC, he and his partners have a strong desire to make a full acquisition of the club. However, he said he's not putting in an offer because the current owner, Depon Chansiri, does not want to enter negotiations. All sounds very hopeful, and then you get to the end bit of the statement.
Dare I say it's Carlton Palmer's fault, maybe?
I think it definitely is.
I think this is just indicative of what Chansiri is about with Sheffield Wednesday. It's frustrating because I don't think he's fully utilised the potential of that football club. I mean, we saw it. I've mentioned the Peterborough game already in this episode, but these are moments and occasions the club needs to build on. They just haven't under Chansiri, and I don't think they'll ever reach the potential under him. So it doesn't make sense for him to continue losing money and pissing off supporters for what reason. It just doesn't make sense. I know he's got a lot of money in the club and you don't want to lose money, but you're losing money, you're losing your reputation, and unfortunately you might be a League One club in 7 months' time once again as well. So it makes sense to at least open up the negotiations and let's see what they're about. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not a businessman, but I would.
Yeah, it is a big shame, isn't it? Because I fully accept Chansiri has put a lot of money into Wednesday and has, been there for quite some time now, but he is a clown and has ultimately been the reason why Wednesday are currently bottom of the table with no points and one of the favourites to get relegated this season. All the hard work from last season looks like it could be completely unravelled because of Depon Chansiri. And, the fiasco with Darren Moore not having a head of recruitment for most of the summer and, look at the squad. It's all the fingers just come back to him, don't they? So when you hear of, genuine, credible interest in Sheffield Wednesday, and it's just not even being entertained, the idea of a takeover, that's pretty sad because Sheffield Wednesday need a takeover. And I just can't see them progressing as a football club while Chansiri is at the helm.
It's also worth pointing out that Birmingham City were a basket case of a football club, almost unsellable considering the debt that they had and the grounds in disrepair and the squad that was available to John Eustace. It was in a bad state and they've had a takeover and all of a sudden things are incredible and things are looking up. Whereas with Sheffield Wednesday, things are looking down. Even Cardiff have gone semi-normal this summer where they've just been a bit more proactive than they have been in previous years. So yeah, it's been what's that word I'm looking for? We've not had as much drama over the summer with Cardiff, and it's just until owners sort of step away and lose the ego, they don't hit their potential, and that's the classic case of Chansiri and Sheffield Wednesday.
It really is. Hull have signed Burnley midfielder Scott Twine on a season-long loan. The 24-year-old only managed 14 appearances for the Clarets last season after struggling with injury, but I think this is a phenomenal signing. Justin, what do you think?
Bit naughty, isn't it? Naughty with a NAW. It's naughty. Oh yeah, it's one of those signings where it can be a real difference maker in a team becoming a mid-tabler, top half into a top six side, because you've got this player who's got a tremendous amount of creative potential. It's been untapped because of his injury problems last season for Burnley, but we saw the impact they had in certain games. That winner of a free kick, I can't remember who it was against, but the free kick on the edge of the box that he scored, it was just ridiculous. And he's got this innate quality to do that in big moments and big games. So I'm hoping that he stays injury free because I want to see how Scott Twine progresses this season. And under Liam Rosenior, I think he can be a real asset.
He definitely could. I mean, this time last year, he was one of the most sought after players in the whole of the EFL, wasn't he? He was a really exciting signing for Burnley. Never mind Hull, who, mid-table. So getting him on loan could be an unbelievable bit of business. And yes, injuries have really hampered him over the last 12 months. Still scored 3 goals, though, including a beautiful free kick, what you were just talking about just in the game against West Brom. It was. West Brom. He's just got bags of talent. Him, Liam Delap, as a front three with someone else. I'm on the other.
Doesn't need to be anybody else.
Doesn't need to be anyone else. But that is a lot of potential there, isn't there, for a lot of fun. So, Aaron Connolly as well, who we were just talking about earlier. So, this could go one or two ways, where we finally see what Scott Twine is all about at championship level, or injuries could continue to hamper him. So we shouldn't get too carried away. But in terms of the potential of this signing, it could end up being signing of the season because of how good we know he can be.
Yeah.
It's just about making him that player again. And it's going to be tough because it's a long time since we saw that player. But in terms of technical ability, he had it in bags when he joined Burnley. So hopefully we see that player once again. Willy Gnonto has put in a transfer request at Leeds as he looks to force away a move from Ellen Road. What a problem. What a dilemma, Justin. What do you think Leeds should do at this point?
I think they've got to recognise that he's still a teenager. He's still young. He's going to make some daft decisions. And I think he's being led by his agents. That's what my assumption would be. So I think it would just be understand that perspective, allow the transfer window to close because I don't think he's going to be sold. And as we're seeing with Everton, they're not very good side in the Premier League. So again, if he wants to go to Everton, if he's that desperate to go to Everton, said it before, he'll be in the same boat next season as he is now. So for me, I think Willy Gnonto is better to stay at Leeds. And I just hope that they recognise that he's a teenager. We all make stupid decisions when we're teenagers. I bought a Toyota Yaris that had checkered stickers all over it. That was a stupid decision. I regretted it. And now look at me. I'm thriving, sort of.
That Yaris was crap as well. Yeah, Gnonto. It's so frustrating, isn't it? Because it is purely, it's got to be his agent who's whispering in his ear. And that's really, really frustrating because I'm not being funny, right? Leeds are a huge club, easily top 10 in the country for, club size in terms of the fan base. And Gnonto, Sinistera, and I'm guessing plenty of others just don't seem to appreciate that. He could be a Leeds legend if he stuck around, got them promoted again. He could have the world at his feet, but no, he's seemingly just ignoring that completely. And you know what? I disagree with you, Justin. I completely agree with the chant. Don't want to play? Fuck off home, is what Leeds fans have been chanting recently. And I agree. I fully accept that he's young and, we all make mistakes and what have you. But if he doesn't want to play, then get rid, let him go. Because there are plenty of talented players who would rip off your hand to play for a club the size of Leeds United. And if he doesn't want to do that, then he's being a baby, isn't he, at the end of the day? Hence that banner that we saw at the game on Friday night.
You're the type of guy who would drop him into reserves and fine him 2-week wages continuously, especially on FM. Drop him in reserves.
If this was FM right now, then I would be sticking him right in the under 23s and just let him rot. Did you know, by the way, and I completely forgot about this, you've just brought it up, so I'm just going to mention it. On FM in like the mid 2000s, you could just find players for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, so I was a right bastard with this. My brother would leave his laptop open, and I would just completely derail his saves and fine every player 2-week wages for no reason, just upset the harmony of the squad, and ultimately he'd have to go back to another load date. So yeah, it was a deep memory bank, that was, and one that I enjoyed thoroughly.
Yeah, FM back in the day was savage. Cardiff have signed Greek international midfielder Manolis Siopis. He's a free agent after leaving Turkish side Trabzonspor. You'd be brave if you bet on him to be first goal scorer in a Cardiff game, put it that way. He's 29, has only scored one goal in his entire club career. I don't know much about this guy, Justin. He's played nearly every game for Trabzonspor last season, and Cardiff need midfielders, so it makes sense. I was more fascinated with some of his teammates from last season. Marek Hamzik, Trezeguet, the ex-Villa forward, Lazar Markovic, Mark Bartra, and, of course, former Cardiff striker Andreas Cornelius. Great stuff.
Certainly got a lot of pedigree, hasn't he? I know quite a few Cardiff fans quite excited by the move, and hopefully Cornelius did a good job in selling the club to him.
I'm not sure about that,
but yeah, he's got pedigree. Don't know much about him, but say Cardiff need midfielders. He's very experienced and plays some good teams as well, so that's going to help matters. But yeah, that's going from Mark Bartra to Mark McGuinness is an interesting comparison, shall we say?
I know who I'd rather have. And your friends, Justin, Troy Deeney has been named as a new player coach at Forest Green. You're a huge fan of Deeney, aren't you?
Yeah, he probably turned down the job at Man City, didn't he, to take that role at Forest Green on, didn't he? I'm having a dig there. He talks a big game, is what I'm saying. Like it's clips a while ago about him talking a big game, going to Leicester, turning him down, blah, blah, blah. He probably turned down big job at Man City before getting this job at Forest Green. I'm not a big fan of him, is what I'm saying.
No. Well, I got that sense quite a while ago when you went on a whole tangent about him. Let's do the polls, Justin. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter. Kind of completely forgot them. We've only been doing this for 5 years now. 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this: what should Leeds do with Willy Gnonto? Sell or keep? You said keep. I said sell. 84% of people agree with me. They think he should be sold. 16% said keep. What do you think of the extra long added time? Like it? Don't like it?
I don't think I like it. It's just too long for me to be at the game. Especially like you get to a Tuesday night and it's -3 in January and you've got to spend an extra 20 minutes. I don't know about that. I don't eat pies at football, so that's gonna warm the soul. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure pies are that good at warming you up, just a Yeah, I'm kind of the same as you. I'm guessing it's a bit worse for you because obviously Sporting Derby, it's not a great, it's not great having to force yourself to stick around for 10 minutes extra after the game. But 69% of people said they like it. 31% said they don't. And finally, which of these superhero powers would you have? Ability to fly, can't die, invisibility, or super strength?
The ability to fly. Just be able to go on holiday anywhere you want. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That would be, actually. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Invisibility would be quite interesting. Get to, wander into changing rooms at a, football
where are you going
ground.
with this? Why?
I know it sounds a bit weird when I say it like that. I'm talking more about wanting to see what's behind the scenes and just being like a fly on the wall when a team's just been battered or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Not anything else.
Yeah, raging pervert.
I do want to say that, but
you took a hole now.
43% of people agree with me. Invisibility would be the best one. 29% said ability to fly. 20% said can't die. 8% said super strength. I thought super strength would get a bit more than that, to be honest. Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful 8. Simon asked Justin to name 8 of a certain subject. All he's got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if I were to say, name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, and he would say Villa, that's 1 down, and then Newcastle, that's another down. But if Justin would then say Weymouth, he would lose a life. So all he needs to do is give me all 8 without all losing all of his lives. We do Simon Grayson's Hateful 8 amidst the controversy of last week where Justin gave me a frankly ridiculous question. Are you apologising, Justin?
No, I'd sworn on Twitter, defend my game, my selections, and they would be incredibly disappointed with you.
Is you've got to get all 8, and it was impossible to get all 8 last week.
It wasn't impossible. It was hard. It wasn't impossible.
But Simon Walton, Andre Dazelle, Dan Gosling.
What's your point? These are Dan Gosling's had a great career. Dazelle's still going in. Simon Walton.
How was I meant to guess them?
It's not my problem. That's your problem, and you failed.
No. You would have. Do you think you would have got that?
I think I would have got 7.
Well, that's the thing. You're meant to get all 8. It's meant to be the point of the game is to get all 8, and it was impossible to get all 8.
It was impossible in your eyes, Ryan. In other eyes, it wasn't.
Simon Walton.
I don't understand your point here. A lot of people.
I haven't even heard of Simon Walton. How was I supposed to guess him?
That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. That's a gap in your knowledge that you need to fill. You need to fill that knowledge. You're championship expert, quote unquote.
I need to know more about Simon Walton, do I?
Absolutely. It might come up again.
So your question this week, Justin, is can you name for me the 8 clubs Simon Walton has made the most appearances for in the Football League?
That's so petty.
You've got 3 lives. Go.
Stevenage.
29 appearances. That's 6th.
Bradford
are not on there. You've lost a life.
How many lives are you giving me?
3.
Leeds.
Yep, Leeds are on there. 34 appearances. That's 4th.
Barnet
not on there.
Wow, the pettiness of this. This is incredible. I'm enjoying it though. Simon Walton. Who did you play for, Simon Walton?
Exactly. And that's my point.
Listen, if this is where you want to go, 2 weeks into the season, this is where we're going.
Just make your Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight next week. Just make it realistic is all I ask.
This is realistic. If I
Can I
knew
get
a lot
another
about,
answer, please?
I mentioned Leeds. I've mentioned Stevenage. I will go with Preston.
Preston are not on there.
Okay. I'll throw in one more.
You've lost all your lives now. So
Yeah, well, I'm just going to throw in one
that goes
more.
to show how much you know about Simon Walton. If anything, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah, it is a me problem, and it's a gap in my knowledge that I'm going to work hard this week to fill, because I know if anyone asks me this in my lifetime now, I'm not going to be able to give them the answer they need.
Do you want another one? Because I did make two. I wanted to see if you were going to apologise or not, and give you a big humble pie. So here's another one for you. As we all know, it's been a crazy few weeks at Leeds with players not wanting to play for them. So let's take a look back at players who did want to play for them. Can you name for me the 8 players who have made the most appearances for Leeds United in the Championship since it was rebranded in 2004?
Simon Walton. Joke. Don't take that as an answer.
You've got 3 lives, by the way.
3 lives. Most appearances. It's actually quite hard because they had a massive turnover of players, didn't they? One might say it's impossible. I'm going to go with Liam Cooper.
Liam Cooper is top with 184 appearances. He is their longest serving player after joining in 2014. So that's 1 down, Justin.
The easy one, again, is Luke Ayling.
Luke Ayling is 5th. He's on 146 appearances. Surprised he wasn't a bit higher in this list, actually. That's 2 down.
I will throw in... No, I'm not going to throw in Click. High turnover of goalkeepers as well. Johnny Howson.
Johnny Howson is not on there. You have lost a life, Justin. 2 lives left, 6 remaining.
It's actually really difficult. Ross McCormack.
Ross McCormack is on there. 143 games he played for Leeds in the Championship. He is 6th. That means you've got 5 to go.
Ooh. Gary Kelly. Fraser Richardson.
Fraser Richardson and Gary Kelly both aren't on there. I'll just take off 1 life for you there. 1 life remaining, Justin. I thought you'd do a bit better than this, to be honest.
It's just that they had a really high turnover of plays pretty much until Bielsa came in.
You need to think a bit more about the Bielsa team.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Bamford then. Are you being serious?
Patrick Bamford is not on there. 3 out of 8, Justin. That is a pretty poor showing, I think. It sounds like a you problem. The players you were looking for were Stuart Dallas. He was 2nd, 177 appearances. Calvin Phillips was 3rd, 165. Pablo Hernandez was 4th, 151. Gaetano Berardi, 142. He was 7th. And finally, Sam Byram, 132 games and counting in a Leeds United shirt. Do you think you should have done better?
Yeah, I did. I was looking in the wrong era. I was focusing too much on the mid-2000s for some reason.
You were overthinking it a bit too much.
Simon Walton's got in my head. So too has Simon Grayson. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday for another preview episode of all the games coming up in the Championship next weekend. So we look forward to seeing you then. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.